Hi, so today's video is another look at close reading. And if you think that close reading is just something that your teachers are making you do, I kind of want to draw your attention to how I use it in real life. So this is a novel that I'm reading called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And I use these strategies all the time when I'm reading. And these are actual pictures from the novel as I'm reading it. And I highlight things that I think are important and I make some comments where I think comments are needed. And I ask questions where, I'm unsure of things, or I highlight words that I'm not sure about, or something that I think is recurring in a text. So I make a lot of different comments. I highlight different things, and it's not the first time that I've read the book. So some of these comments and highlighting and underlined phrases are things that I've seen after, rereading it. And I really think it's important to close read because it gives you an opportunity to look at something that you think you know and understand it in a different way. So today we're looking at a non-fictional text called A Desert Run, and this is by the Associated Press, contributed to this story. And we find out that it is from Cairo, Egypt. It's difficult to imagine trekking across the hot, windswept, 4,000-mile wide desert with little water at your disposal, but nearly impossible to fathom running across that desert at least 44 miles at a time, day after day. That's just what three men did recently, becoming the first modern runners to cross the Sahara Desert. So that's pretty crazy, right? And just looking at the very first paragraph, we find out that three people went across the desert, and so I think that's something that might be noteworthy. So I'm just going to insert a comment here. I'm going up to insert comment, and three people ran across the desert, and that's pretty crazy. So something I discovered in the reading that I think is noteworthy. So I'm going to put an annotation there just to kind of summarize what happened and is something important that I see going on. Charlie Engle of the U.S., Ray Zahab of Canada, and Kevin Lin of Taiwan completed the run through parts of 6 countries in 111 days. Wow. Starting in Senegal, they jogged through Mauritania, Mali, Nigeria, Libya, and Egypt. After nearly 4 months of running through harsh desert conditions, the group reached Egypt's Red Sea and put their hands in the water to signify crossing the finish line. Wow, that's pretty crazy. All right, so I want to take note of that. Oh my goodness, 111 days of running. That's crazy. All right, so I would go through the text in this way. I would look for anything that stands out to me, anything that I think is important. It might lead to the main idea. It could be supporting details or key details. I might look for words that I don't know. For example, it's difficult to imagine tracking. So tracking is a term that maybe isn't common. Maybe it's something that I don't know, or maybe you're not really familiar with what that term means. So I might highlight it just to take note of it. And as I was reading, I figured out, okay, so they're obviously crossing the desert. They're making a trip. They're traveling. They're doing a run for whatever reason. So I might decide, okay, I think trekking is definitely a verb, in my opinion, based on the context clues. So I might make note of this. I think trekking might mean traveling or running based on what I've already seen. But it's definitely, I think, a verb. It's something that people are doing. And if I'm not sure and it's leading to confusion in my understanding of the passage, then I might go and look it up and find out what it actually means. So I would go through the passage this way on my first read and just make sure that I understand what it's saying and that I identify any words I don't understand and just keep checking my understanding, maybe summarizing or paraphrasing. And then the second read, what I'm going to do is look at the questions that have been provided for me to dig back in. So if it's something I haven't considered, like I didn't look at the word fathom when I first read through the passage, and here it is in my second read. In the context of the passage, what does the word fathom mean? And that was something that I didn't think about when I did my first reading of this paragraph. So it causes me to go back in, dig a little deeper, and I find out that it's difficult to imagine trekking across a hot, windswept, 4,000-mile wide desert with little water at your disposal, but nearly impossible to fathom running across that desert at least 44 miles at a time, day after day. That's just what 3 men did recently, become the first modern runners to cross the Sahara Desert. So now I have to go in and look at a word that I either already knew or wasn't sure of. Maybe it didn't pop out at me right away because I was concerned with my understanding of another word like trekking or something else. So now I have to consider this. It's nearly impossible to fathom running across that desert. So it's something that people did, but maybe it's impossible to understand. So I'm trying to figure out what this word means, and I think it may be understand or maybe look at, or what else could fathom mean? Running across that desert. Believe. So these are words that maybe could help me define and more or better understand what that word means in the context of the passage. Understand or look at or believe. And when I look at the passage, but nearly impossible to understand why anyone would run across the desert that's so difficult to imagine. It's windswept. It seems like a lot. It's a very long place to go, 4,000-mile wide. There's little water at your disposal. It's nearly impossible maybe to understand. Seems like the best way to understand, maybe a synonym for that word. So we can find out certainly by looking up in the definition, in the dictionary, or looking at thesaurus, but using our word skills and really doing a little bit of rereading and understand what we're looking at really helps us to maybe figure out that word just a little bit better. So a second reading is always going to be helpful because it asks us to look back into the passage and really understand what it is we're looking at. Here's another question. What did the runners do when they finished their 111-day run through 6 countries? So asking us to consider what happened, what was the result, what was an impact, not just understanding the passage, but what was the outcome. So Charlie Engle of the U.S., Ray Zahab of Canada, and Kevin Lin of Taiwan completed the run through parts of 6 countries in 111 days. Starting in Senegal, they jogged through Mauritania, Mali, Nigeria, Libya, and Egypt. After nearly 4 months of running through harsh desert conditions, the group reached Egypt's Red Sea and put their hands in the water to signify crossing the finish line. So to answer this question, what did they do to finish their 111-day trip or trek through the countries? We see that they put their hands in the water to signify crossing the finish line. And of course that's really important to know because that's kind of like symbolic. What they did really meant something to them. And we find out later that it was like a bookend of their trip. So we find out, more than just what the little sentence or what the paragraph states. And by digging in deeper, we can find out more information. So I would go through the rest of this passage this way, looking at the questions, Rereading parts of the passage and considering why this might be significant or what a word means in the context of the passage. And then finally, I get to the last prompt that asks me to summarize the journey the three men took across Africa, clearly state the main purpose of their run and the challenges that they faced along the way. Remember, a summary is a concise restatement of the main idea and key details in your own words. So hopefully all of the questions I've asked myself and all of the notes that I've taken have really focused me on the key details and the supporting information that happens throughout the passage. So I can go ahead and say, okay, what is this passage mostly about? And looking at the title, okay, it's about a desert run, but what about that desert run? What about the topic of this particular article? That's our main idea. And then when I go through and I look at all the supporting details, I can say, okay, so the main idea is what the passage is mostly about. And all of these key details help support that main idea in this way. And in maybe 1, 2, or 3 sentences, I can sum up an entire article. And that's pretty awesome. If you have any questions, ask your teacher.